those people? You can't see them? No, you can't see them. Who are they all? Huh? Why are you so squirmy? You don't want to look at your book too, friends? No. Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to your Daily Penguin. I've got a slightly squirmy bean on my hands, probably looking forward to a walk. And we are in the middle of our March of the Penguins. We're walking through my Penguin Classic collection. An admittedly large Penguin Classic collection, although not the largest ones that I've seen. There are plenty of Penguin Classics that I don't have and that I don't want. But we were going through a vein of Penguin Classic Deluxe editions, which are beautiful things that I actually do love. I have some Penguin Classic Deluxe editions, even for books or authors that I don't particularly like. I figure I'm not going to have them in any other format. I might as well have them this way. And, of course, from the gravy days of this channel and of the 15 years before that, it never hurt that those deluxe editions were sent to me in the mail. By publisher, by Penguin, for free. That always adds to the value there, but that's not happening anymore, and we have largely moved out of this vein of Penguin Classic Deluxe editions anyway. Yesterday we did a Penguin Galaxy book, a short run of naked hardcover reprints that they did of classics of science fiction and fantasy. Yesterday we saw The Once and Future King by T.H. White, which I would argue is the single greatest work of fantasy ever written. And today we see Dune by Frank Herbert, which I would argue is the single greatest work of science fiction ever written. So, and once again, those of you who are a little bit on the anal side are not going to like that at all. The book stands upright this way, and the title and the spine goes up like that from the bottom instead of down from the top, or printed just reversed, even if it's at the bottom. Kind of strange. I assume done intentionally to sort of, what's the phrase? Subvert expectations? This is a beautiful hardcover edition of a book that I have in many, many editions. I have many editions of this book. Frank Herbert's great science fiction classic about two warring households in a far future in a distant galaxy. And the desert planet and the geriatric spice melange that's at the heart of that whole storyline. An amazing work. I remember the first time I read this book as though it were yesterday, and every time that I have read it since, I have got whole new rafts of meaning out of it, which is incredible for work of any kind of made-up story, much less science fiction. It's operatic, it's ancient Greek, it's drama, it's daring do, it's got an amazingly rousing climax. It's about to be, I believe, desecrated into a 2-part movie extravaganza from Hollywood. But I will always have the Science Fiction Channel's adaptation of this book. I will always have that. The Science Fiction Channel's adaptation of this book is actually very, very good. Unlike the previous Hollywood movie adaptation, and unlike, I believe, this next one. The next one could surprise me, but the signs aren't looking good. But then again, the adaptation of a work for the screen doesn't really matter. I'll always have this book, and I'll always have my original. When I first read this, there was no thought in anyone's mind of ever adapting something this grand and weird to any kind of screen. And so I was free to imagine it all as I pleased. And boy, oh boy, those were wonderful days. And I have gone back to this book many times. This is a touchstone book for me, something that if I need, for instance, if I read a bad science fiction novel, or a string of them in a row, God forbid, I will often go back to Dune to sort of clear the decks, to sort of cleanse the palate and whatnot. And it always works, because this is unfailingly intelligent. This is a perfect a perfect example of something that I have often said with regard to genre fiction of any kind, but especially science fiction, which is that if you write down to your readers, your book will age very quickly. If you write up to them, if you write as though they were incredibly intelligent and were going to be able to parse your book 6 ways from Sunday, your book will stand a chance of surviving. And this book is relentlessly intelligent. That's one of the things that I love about it. It, of course, spawned sequels, the much vexed World of Dune sequels. Frank Herbert wrote a number of those sequels, and then his son co-wrote a whole bookcase full of other sequels that aren't anywhere near as good as the original 5 books. And that were, I believe, intentionally marketed to blur the distinction between uh, the works of the Son and the works of the Father in a way that hurts both. One way or another, the Dune and its sequels, the subject of an upcoming podcast conversation that I'm having. I was in my very first podcast last month ago, and that association has continued. So soon I will have a link for another podcast for you to listen to, and then maybe one after that. Lots and lots of fun. But in the meantime, this Dune was one of the inaugural launch of these Penguin Galaxy books. You can see it on the spine here. Penguin Galaxy there in gold leaf. I have never actually used these books. I got them in the mail, but I haven't used them, which is important, right? Because I don't really care about books as collectible objects. So I have yet to determine whether or not this will actually stand the strain. How good is the binding? It's a big book. And what about this gold coloring on the cover? Is that just going to fade away after one reading of taking this in and out of a shoulder bag, taking it from room to room? Am I going to have just a brown cover with no details on it at all? I don't know. I've never actually used a Penguin Galaxy book yet for that reason. But the initial run of these, the initial 6 of these, there was Dune, there was The Once and Future King, there was Neuromancer, there was Stranger in a Strange Land, there was The Left Hand of Darkness, and 2001, A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke. And I think I got them all just then. Yes? Yes, I got them all. That original batch raised my hopes, very much so, that maybe we were going to see a high-profile science fiction run from a major publisher of reprints of great works. And I immediately started imagining what those works would be. I would have included every one of these works, maybe not 2001. I think a lot of people who would make an a series like this would think you have to include Clarke. But Clarke is such a bad writer. He's such a bad writer. He's a good imaginer. But you think about a pretty series like this, you want the book to be all things, not just good imagination. You want it to be all things. So, and I always draw the distinction there between science fiction writers who can do the dramatic heavy lifting of fiction itself, and the science fiction writers who are just good at the whiz-bang imaginings. So I would much rather have had The Demolished Man here by Alfred Bester than anything by Arthur C. Clarke. And I'm relieved that this initial batch did not have science fiction's most prolific and most well-known imaginer, Isaac Asimov, who couldn't write prose to save his life. I don't say that as a criticism. I have nothing but affection for Asimov's writing, but it is bad, just like Clarke's writing is bad. If I had to remove somebody here, I would remove 2001, A Space Odyssey, which is, even apart from the imaginations, it's a clunky book. Clunky and parochial and preachy like everything else that Clarke wrote. I would much rather have I could make a long list of things. Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang, for instance, could be in here. It is not. Actually, I want to turn off camera and consult with Mark Richardson, but he's not here. I think Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang is earlier than Neuromancer by quite a bit, isn't it? Considerably earlier than Neuromancer, so it could be in here. But and it's great in every way, not just in the imagining way. That's the kind of thing that I'm thinking of, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't think I still have the Clarke volume, but I think I have all the others at one point or another somewhere. But this started me imagining and making a list of the books that I would want commemorated in this Penguin line. Whereas I haven't checked yet. I did this yesterday. I'm doing another one of these today. I still haven't checked to see if the Penguin Galaxy line has actually expanded beyond these first 6 books. I don't know if it has or not. And I'm a little bit anxious about what it would expand to if it did. But I'll have to look into that and see. One way or another, these are the only ones that I have. And this is an egregious thing. Absolutely egregious. I mean, yes, I love the fact that Penguin Galaxy exists, but I do not need another edition of Dune. I just don't. It's totally wasteful. It's just sitting there because it's one of the ones I kept. That's all. But as far as your Penguin Classic recommendation goes, I could not. I love Dune. I cannot recommend the book highly enough. I wish that I were holding a Penguin Classic Black Spine trade paperback of this book. I wish that existed. That would be wonderful. In my imagination, I imagine this fantasy world where I have a Penguin Classic of everything, and that fantasy world of everything that I think is worthy of it, everything that I like that I think is worthy of it, and that Penguin Classic fantasy has only been fueled by something you may have seen on social media lately, where there's this website where you can generate your own Penguin Classic book covers. A couple of you have done that for me, and it's been wonderful. Who are the pictures that you found and put on there? And my friend Deb made me one as well. And I'm resisting the temptation to do it myself, because I wouldn't make up fun personal covers with pictures of my dogs on them or whatnot. I would design covers with titles for books that I think should be Penguin Classics, and it would make things even worse. It would make the longing even more pointed. So that's your Penguin Classic for today. It's a Penguin Classic adjacent, really. It's Dune. And we will move on tomorrow. Who knows what the next thing will be. We're just going to work our way forward steadily, but we are not in organized territory. There will be batches of organization as we go along, islands of it, but not a lot. So who knows? We will reconvene tomorrow and see what tomorrow's Penguin is. So I will wrap this up for now, but I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.